Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and thanks for attending the Oracle Integration Partner Community Webcast. I'm Jürgen Kress, part of the Oracle Product Management team. In case you missed one of our webcasts, on-demand recordings are available on VideoHub, including presentation for download. In today's presentation, our very Mr. SOA, Antony Reynolds, will present best practices for Oracle integration. So good morning, Antony.
Good morning, Jürgen. Thanks for inviting me.
You realize that I still call you Mr. SOA. You're with Oracle a long, long time.
Yes, it's a very long time. We've got a long history, haven't we, Jürgen?
Indeed, indeed. So you are with the company for 20 years plus?
Indeed, more than 25 now.
25, indeed. So what does it take to become an integration expert, and what does it take to learn Oracle integration those days?
It's a lot easier today than it used to be. You
I
don't need to
remember,
know Java. You don't have to understand SOAP and WSDLs like you used to in the old days. But you can do incredible things now. You can do so much more quickly with Oracle integration.
I remember the days with SOAP, whistles, XSDs, and uh, data asynchron, synchron. Is that still valid today, or?
A lot of the principles are still valid, the sync and async and concurrency and batching items together for efficiency. And we'll talk about some of those in our session today.
Excellent. So let's get started. So SaaS services like Oracle ERP, HCM, or CX need to be connected, and integration offers adapters for pre-built connectivity. Objective of today's call is to help you to build better integrations. Please pay attention to the Oracle Safe Harbor statement. Please do blog and tweet about all services which are available today. Quick housekeeping. Please feel free to post your questions in the conference Q&A tool anytime. At the end of the webcast, we will answer them. Slides will be available at our VideoHub channel and community page. Please share your please share your feedback via the Zoom survey at the end of the webcast. I kick off the call with a short update and announcements, and then hand over to Antony, who will present best practices for Oracle integration. In case you have implemented Oracle integration successful and you are with us in the community for several years and want to share best practices and your success stories, please submit your papers for Oracle Cloud World in Las Vegas in October. Call for paper is open until May 23rd, and we recommend that you highlight customer success, maybe best practices, business benefits, ROI, and we recommend you to submit the paper in multiple categories. If you connected SaaS, you can submit it in the HCM category, or you can submit it also in the developers track. We are happy to announce that all certifications are now available in the 2025 edition. So please, if you have not done yet, update your certification. Sales and Solution Engineer are free online certifications, and the Oracle Infrastructure Application Integration Professional is now also available in the 2025 edition. To prepare you for the certification, we continue to offer the bootcamp. Upcoming dates include Brazil in May and India time zone in June. All information is published in our monthly community newsletter. In case you're not yet a member, please subscribe and read the latest edition. As a community member, you also have access to the community website. So the new website is built in SharePoint. Please try to access it, request your access, and we should approve it immediately. On the page, you'll find all information about integration, also about best practices, training material, and brand new resource kit for rapid adapter builder and for RPA. Today's webcast is live. In case you missed one of the webcasts, available is it on demand at Oracle VideoHub. With that, I would like to hand over to you, Antony.
So thank you, Jürgen, for the opportunity to talk about some of the best practices. This is an updated version of a session I gave at Cloud World last September. And so we're going to talk about some of the things that you should be doing when you're working with Oracle integration. But first of all, a little bit of context for those of you new to Oracle integration. We position ourselves as a business automation platform, and what that means is that we focus on connecting and integrating applications, but also extend to allow automation of workflows with human in the loop. We have a robotic process automation capability that is built into the product, along with B2B, decision automation, document processing, a conversational assistant to assist you in questions that you have, and through the Visual Builder, a low-code application development environment for developing mobile and web-based applications. So this comes obviously with extensive connectivity to other systems, and we are used for a variety of different use cases by our customers for data consistency, for making better use of existing data, for improving productivity, and of course, any engaging experiences. So many of our customers use us as the back end to mobile and web apps. So when we talk about using Oracle integration, we think, first of all, step one is to connect our apps and our data together. We provide a very modern low-code platform for building modern connectivity. The next step is to extend beyond just connecting two applications, but to automate the end-to-end business process with the ability to extend those standard business processes that are often embedded into an application with extensions through Oracle integration and its process capabilities. And then finally, we want you to innovate with AI, to take advantage of our ability to orchestrate AI services, to be able to add and take advantage of AI within the product. And we will have a number of exciting announcements at Cloud World where we'll be showing new AI capabilities that will enable you to unlock the power of AI within your businesses. But today, we're going to be focusing on some best practices for using Oracle integration. So we'll start off by talking about development and deployment. We'll talk about security, performance, and we'll finish off with a section on operations and observability. So let's start off with development and deployment. We will be talking about a number of different areas. First of all, the best integrations and automations are those that you don't have to write. Oracle integration has a large number of pre-built accelerators. What's the difference between an accelerator and just a regular pre-built integration? Accelerators are fully supported by Oracle. You can raise service requests against them. Often, if the accelerator involves a Fusion application or NetSuite, those may well have been written by Fusion application team themselves, and hence lots of expertise goes into them. They are customizable, so you can extend them. You can add custom fields into your apps and access those custom fields within the accelerator. And very importantly, they are upgrade safe. In other words, when you make extensions to an accelerator, when you decide to deploy a new version of that accelerator, we will detect that within Oracle integration and ask you if you want to bring your customizations to the new version. That's what we mean by upgrade safe. So there's a number of different accelerators available within the integration store. So we've got a couple of examples here. And so encourage you to start searching for existing solutions before you start creating a new one. Saves you a lot of time, and you can still customize your solution. So use accelerators is our first suggestion. Now, one of the features that we added in Oracle Integration 3 is the OIC project. So the project brings all of our resources into one place. And so, for example, here's an example of a project. I can see I've got a number of integrations, some connections in here, lookups and libraries. So instead of having 400, and the average customer has around about 400 active integrations, instead of having that big long list, you can now focus them on, for example, creating Jira issues for ServiceNow incidents. You can have a project that just has the connections to Jira and ServiceNow and the flows that works with. So in addition to integrations, connections, lookups, and libraries, we have the robotic process automation here. We have healthcare features. We have B2B, all included within project. In the upcoming release, or a couple of upcoming releases, you'll see new capabilities added in here, such as decisions, and we will be adding some additional AI capabilities that you will see here, which we'll be announcing at Cloud World. If you have existing integrations that you've got in packages, we provide a one-click mechanism to convert those packages to projects so that you can take your existing integrations and move them into the project world. And we suggest that if you are doing any new development, you start with a project, because all our new features are project only. And so one of the cool features within our project is dependency diagrams. So here we can see a dependency diagram where I can see which integrations call which other integrations and which connections and lookups they're using. So this is very helpful when you're trying to understand the relationships and the impact of any changes that you might be thinking about making. So another one of the cool features that we've added to project. Part of project is deployments. So what is a deployment? It is a way of packaging up the integrations, lookups, and libraries that you need to send to a higher environment. So this is completely customizable. You can choose which releases are going to be, or which versions of your integration are going to be included in a release, making release management easy. It gives you fine-grained inclusion of the components. So you can see here that we can choose which integrations we're going to include, and we can choose which specific version of those integrations that we want, so that we don't, with the old package model, you ended up with every version that was in the package. With a deployment, you don't need to take everything that's in your project. You only take what you want. So every time you release, you should have a deployment that's associated with that release. And then a minor release or an emergency patch might have a very small subset of integrations in order to just make the changes to the environment. So this makes it much easier to see what you're deploying, and also you can activate a whole deployment with one click, which makes it very easy to activate and means that you can choose what you don't have to worry about getting the right integrations activated. So that's deployment. So let's talk, when you're working in the project environment, sometimes you have resources that you want to share between multiple projects. And so, for example, here we've got an AS4 adapter that we want to share across multiple projects because we have multiple different functional areas that want to deal with our trading partners across AS4. So we can put these into a project, gives us a single place to manage the shared connections and shared integrations. And we can control access to them via RBAC. So for example, you may allow people to share this AS4 adapter, but you may not give everybody the ability to edit it. you may restrict that to certain people. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. So you can have, the recommendation is that you have a project that's dedicated to shared connections and shared integrations. You may have more than one. And you can use that integration sharing to create common error handling, logging, audit integrations, for example. So take advantage of shared resources to avoid duplication. That said, let's move on to security. How do we actually secure our integrations, and what are some of the best practices here? First of all, at the top level, it's possible to have an access control list where you can restrict the incoming IP addresses or virtual compute networks that are allowed to access your integration instance. Now, there is currently a limit of 15 items that you can put into that allow list. However, it is possible to increase this by, for example, using a custom endpoint and then positioning, for example, an API gateway in front of your integration instance. And then you just allow list the API gateway, and then you can put larger number of restrictions on the API gateway, which would get you past the 15 limit. Similarly, on the file server doesn't support HTTP. It's usually accessed via an FTP. So you can use a flexible load balancer in front of it and again bypass the 15 limit on the access control by just listing the load balancer, and then a load balancer I think allows 200 is the number of ACLs that it will allow. So consider restricting access to your environments. You can also restrict access to your individual projects. So you can restrict access to project artifacts and give people different levels of access. And so just to show how easy that is, let's decide to restrict access to this integration. So here I can, for example, choose another group, and here's a list of all the groups that are available that start with OIC PM. And so this is being pulled out of the identity system. So this is not configured within Oracle integration. We're pulling this out of our identity domain. And so we'll maybe allow administrators to edit this as well. Then I click share. So it really is that easy to set up access control for a project and its associated integrations, robots, etc. This allows you to isolate different teams, and also it enables you to work at the group level rather than the individual user level when you're granting those permissions. So we always recommend you grant permissions up to groups rather than individuals. When we're authenticating with integrations, on our trigger, we have the option to choose OAuth, basic authentication, or both. Our recommendation is to use OAuth where you're able to. This has the benefit that Oracle integration never receives any secrets. It only receives signed assertions about the identity of the person accessing OIC. So that's a plus from the security benefit. It's more scalable, and we'll talk about that in a later slide. And it also gives you userless access options. So you can set up within your identity domain a confidential application to trigger that. I thought I had another. And then within that confidential application, they do not expire. They don't have passwords that expire. And so you don't have to worry about having a service account whose password expires. So much more attractive than using basic auth. So use OAuth for your REST connections, phase out basic auth where you can, and as you need to, configure confidential applications for your clients. Next one is rather esoteric, it seems at first, is to use something called resource principal session tokens rather than OCI auth. What the heck is an RPST, I hear you say? And I'm glad you asked that. Basically, OIC is a resource in the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. As a resource, it can be made subject to policies. And so what we do is, first of all, we create a dynamic group in our domain, and we identify the OIC instances by using the app ID from their cloud application. So this is the client ID that is associated with the cloud application associated with our OIC instance. Once we've set up a rule to match that in what's called a dynamic group, we can now apply policies where we can say, allow dynamic group to use functions or to use the object family in a given compartment. This means that we don't need to set up a connection. We can just use the native actions to call functions or object storage without having to configure any other connection details. We are just authenticating as the OIC instance. So create dynamic groups, use OCI policies to control access to your resources, and use the OIC native action or the REST adapter with the security policy OCI service invocation to avoid having to set up any pesky credentials for this. Just rely on authenticating as the OIC instance. Right, we've talked about security. Let's move on to talk now about performance and things that we can do to improve performance. So one of the additional benefits of OAuth rather than basic auth is that with basic auth, you send the credentials to OIC, and OIC then sends them to the identity provider to say, is this a valid user? And is this really their password? When using OAuth, the client retrieves a token from the OAuth server, and he can then use that token multiple times with Oracle integration. This results in better performance because we're not putting too much load on the OAuth server, and the sessions that come in are then more efficient. And so we strongly recommend that you replace basic auth clients with OAuth clients. Make sure that you're caching the OAuth tokens in the client so that you don't have to keep going back to the OAuth server for a new token. But be aware that tokens do expire, and you can set them up so that there's a refresh capability on them so that before they expire, you can go back and refresh. And of course, the connections in Oracle integration, the outbound connections automatically take care of token expiry and refresh. Now, within OIC, we have a number of different ways of doing parallelism. So why would you want to do parallelism? Well, first of all, if you've got two slow calls, one after the other, and they don't depend on each other, you could do them in parallel, and they probably won't take much longer than the slowest of those two calls. So it reduces the latency. So this can be important when you're dealing with a mobile or web application where you want to give users a snappy experience. It also can reflect the business process where you go, well, these two things are kind of happening in parallel anyway. They don't have to happen one after the other. And so you can actually model what's going on more accurately. And so we have the parallel for each. which you can use when you want to do the same action on multiple items. And we have the explicit parallel, where you can have different actions in different threads. So two different ways of doing parallelism. Things to be aware of: it is not always faster, because obviously there's some coordination to set up multiple threads of execution and then bring them back together. So there's an overhead. So if they are very, very quick operations you're doing, you may not see a performance boost. It might actually slow it down. Similarly, this increases the concurrency. There is a concurrency limit in OIC based on your number of message packs, and each parallel thread consumes one additional concurrency. When you're looping, you've got multiple records to process. Try not to process them one at a time. It's a surefire way to kill the performance of your environment. In order to accelerate the speed at which you execute, use the bulk API calls where they're available. So these take usually two different forms. First of all, they may allow you to pass multiple records in a single API call. Other times, they may provide you with a bulk file upload option where you can upload thousands or tens of thousands of records with a single call asynchronously and schedule it to be processed by the target system. Both of these ways would be bulk API calls that avoid chatty one record calls. Similarly, within the mapper, it is much more efficient to loop over records within there rather than it is to loop over them within the canvas. We are talking 100 times faster or more. So use the loops within the mapper rather than the looping on the canvas. You can use the mapper variable to avoid repeated common calculations or lookups. You can set variables and pre-compute values that you want to use within the loop. Also, if you have the same source and target, you can use the copy of function, which gives you an exact copy of the source in the target. So again, that can speed up things, because if you're doing a block copy, that's a lot faster. So that's looping and ways to improve performance there. Another way to improve performance is to always use production logging when you're in production. Within OIC3, we actually increase the amount of data that's available in production logging so that it probably includes pretty much everything you would need to troubleshoot problems that occur in production. It has the benefit that it is sending a lot less data than the audit and debug levels send, and so it runs faster. And you can set this at the integration or the instance level. If you set it at the integration level, you can control it for each individual integration. If you control it at the service instance level, then it applies, whatever level you set applies to all of the integrations in that instance. And also now all the RPA robots is also adding this same kind of multiple tracing levels. I mentioned concurrency earlier in the context of parallel operations. So we have concurrency limits. These concurrency limits help us to avoid overwhelming target systems, avoid burning up OIC messages unexpectedly, and we have a limit. Each message pack has 100 synchronous concurrent requests that it can support. So a synchronous request is request reply. Asynchronous, and those words are really sound the same, don't they? Asynchronous is a fire and forget. So it's, if you think query reply, you can have 100 of them per message pack executing at the same time. If you have more than 100, we will send you a 429 message which says, "We're busy, please come back later." For fire and forget messages, we won't send you 429s. We will accept the messages and we will queue them up. And for fire and forget messages or asynchronous, we support a concurrency of 50 per message pack. And just to give you some idea of what that means in reality, let's assume that you've got a 12-second response time on your integration. Therefore, if you were to just call the integration, get a response, and immediately call it again, you could get 5 of those a minute. With a concurrency of 100, that means you could peak at 500 messages a minute. You'd burn through your message pack in 10 minutes. So the concurrency limits are quite generous. You can increase the concurrency by increasing the message packs. Local invoke does not add additional concurrency. If you use a REST adapter to call an integration in the same instance, it will increase your concurrency. So use local invoke. Okay, recursion. We all know the definition of recursion. You look it up in the dictionary and it says see recursion. So what we want to do is avoid infinitely deep recursion. And so we have limits that we put in place within the product. We have an invocation depth of 16. So you can only go 16 deep. And we have a max runtime of 6 hours on our async flows. Some people would use recursion to do a bunch of work and then call the same integration at the end. It wasn't real, it was what we'd call tail recursion. And the reason that they didn't do it in a loop was because they were trying to bypass the time limits. We now... Sorry, did you say something, Jürgen?
No, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so we now, within Oracle integration, we track the total time, including application, integration A calls integration B. They all come under the 6 hours. And so we would suggest that if, for example, you have a very long running schedule flow, we'd suggest that where possible, you break it off into smaller async flows, kick them off from the schedule so that the schedule doesn't run too long. If you need to keep things running pretty much forever, we strongly suggest you run a schedule flow. You can explicitly schedule a flow with the run now via an API if you really need to kick it off again as soon as it finishes. And so in that case, use the schedule now via the API to basically have a always running integration. But always look to see if there's better ways of doing it. It's not necessarily the greatest way of setting up your system. Right, we're little over 2/3 of the way through. We're now going to finish up by talking about operations and observability. So first of all, let's talk about alarms and notifications. Fortunately, I would suspect none of you have ever had anything go wrong, so you probably don't need to pay attention to this slide. So within OCI, let's just remind you, so this is the integration console where we can go back and say, let's go back, for example, to home. This is where all our integrations live. So this is the Oracle integration console. We also have the OCI console. So here's an OCI console for an instance where we can see the metrics that have been received. You can go, and if you want to see different views on the data, you can also view the query in the metrics explorer and that will take you into the OCI Metrics Explorer, where you can do things such as set up alarms. So let's go back to the slide here. So when you're setting up alarms, you can say, okay, if I get more than so many errors, please send me an alarm. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to make sure that our logs are being sent to OCI logging. And so, for example, in here, I would enable log, and it would send my activity stream to an OCI log group with a specific log name. That you can then listen on those logs and look for errors within them. And we actually have some pre-built to show you how to do this within logging analytics. So you can create an OCI alarm. Okay, I don't know if you could hear that. My insulin pump was just telling me that it had expired, and so that was the alarm it was sending me. Very appropriate when I'm talking about alarms. So you can set up an alarm on different conditions, such as average response time, or 90 percentile response time is outside of a bound. Too many errors occurring, you can send an alarm. So you set that up then. With the alarm, you set up a notification to say who you want to send the alarm to. And then you can add subscribers to basically say, hey, we want these people to be part of this notification. And this enables you to do proactive monitoring. So here's an example where we've set up the notification and we get a subscription confirmed that we've subscribed to the alarm. And then in this case, it was an email. And so poor Neil will be getting email alerts when there's too many errors in the processing. And so you can configure, there's a lot of configuration you can do in here to get the right level of alarm and send it to the right people. So strongly recommend you look at using OCI logging, send your activity streams to OCI logging, and then set up notifications on just the integration flows that are important to you. And equally, as I say, it doesn't have to be errors. It can be slow response times. It can be any of a number of criteria that you decide. And so when we do this, enabling the OCI logging has a lot of other advantages as well. First of all, within OIC, if you're in production mode, we keep the activity streams for 32 days. If you want to keep them longer, you can send them to OCI logging. If you want to, you can archive them off there into object storage, for example, or logging analytics. Within logging analytics, we have a number of pre-built Oracle integration dashboards that I'll talk about in a moment. And so strongly recommend that you always send your activity streams to OCI logging. And we are now actually spending more time working with the OCI logging teams to create pre-built dashboards than we are creating those within OIC. And the reason for that is that if we give you a pre-built dashboard, it's much easier for you to customize it within OCI logging analytics. Talking of OCI analytics, here's one of the example dashboards that we have. So this one is the health overview. This is available to you. You can just say, hey, create me a health overview, and then you connect it to the appropriate OCI logging streams. And so in this case, I'm using this to give myself a fleet view. And so we have, for example, some customers have 4 or 16, or in some cases, 50 or 60 OIC instances running production loads. this type of screen is essential if you have multiple OIC instances in production. So here we can see how many environments I've got, number of integrations deployed, the throughput, and importantly, I can see the instances in the error hospital and which instances they are. And this is not for a single environment. This is across all of my production environments. So it gives you one screen to rule them all. Also, you can have screens that are dedicated much more around a single instance, where you can take some more insight view into what's going on. You can sort of define milestone actions and start tracking those from within logging analytics and take advantage of some of the cool different graphs that they have to present the data in the way that makes most sense for you. So use the logging analytics. You've got very rich out of the box dashboards. You can use them for fleet management. You can also create your own dashboard. You don't have to use ours. And you can also take advantage of longer term data retention with this. And to enable it, you just need to turn on the send activity streams to OCI logging from the OCI console. And finally, let's finish up with backup and restore. We have occasionally had customers delete their OIC instances and then had great difficulty in getting them back. So we strongly suggest that you have a regularly scheduled backup integration running in your environments, where you will take all your integrations, projects, and everything within them and export them to OCI object storage. If you create an integration to do this, we recommend that you don't do it more than once an hour at most. Probably once a day is more reasonable, because it is a performance impact when you run the backup. And so here we've got an example. You first of all go into the storage section in the settings. So just to show you where that would be, you'd go in here. Oops, wrong one. Go into settings, storage, and this is where you'd set up your OCI storage location. And then the import and export, you can do it manually, but as I say, probably better to do this automatically. You can give it a job name, and this will be the name of the file that is exported. And you can give it a description that will help remind you when you're looking at it within the jobs here that have completed. So that is doing backup and recovery, and that is where we will finish for today. All right. Oh, yeah, I forgot we had the export job there. You can see, as I just showed you, you can export that. So you can use Oracle integration. We view it as a business automation platform. It is not just integrations and connections that you have, but also RPA, processes, decisions, all included in the platform in a single canvas within the project. So remember, use projects, be mindful of what you're building, and refer back to this presentation for some suggestions on best practices. Remember that the best integrations are the ones you don't build, and so make sure that you look for those accelerators to really get you started quickly. If you want some links, these are some great ways to get started with Oracle integration. The first one tells you a little bit about integration and its components. The next one allows you to subscribe to Jürgen's most excellent newsletter about Oracle integration. We have a number of live labs And Subani and Kishore, who have been helping to answer questions on this, are the custodians of our live labs, and they do a great job of creating those for us and running those partner training sessions that Jürgen mentioned at the start of our session today. And then finally, there's an example of automating with AI. And in this case, it's a document processing example, but we have a number of other AI examples of how you can use Oracle integration to accelerate the adoption of AI within your environment. So with that, thank you for listening today, and have a great day and productive and efficient use of OIC. And I'll hand back to you, Jürgen.
Thank you, Antony. So I learned also a lot again from the presentation. It's wonderful. Thank you very much. We have a lot of questions, and the first question is regarding high availability. What options are available in Integration 3 for high availability?
Great question. Out of the box, Oracle integration is automatically highly available. If you are in a multiple availability domain region, for example, Ashburn, Phoenix, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, London, you will automatically be spread across multiple domains, availability domains. If you are in a single availability domain region, Paris, Jerusalem, Melbourne, I think, for example, in that case, we will make sure that you are automatically split across multiple fault domains. So that's high availability. You don't have to do anything. We automatically take care of it. If you need regional failover, we have two options. We have either the Oracle managed disaster recovery. And for this, let me just show you how difficult that is to set up. So if, for example,
Antony, you have to share it.
Am I not sharing?
I was sharing already.
Okay, I'll share again. Is that working now?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let me stop and share again.
Stop.
Okay, so for example, if you want cross-region, you can go in, create an instance. We'll call it Partner Best Practice DR. And you'll see under Advanced Options, you have Enable Disaster Recovery. Today, this can only be enabled when you create the instance. We're currently looking into how we can convert an existing instance into DR enabled. What this does is when I click Create, it will automatically create the instance here in Phoenix, as you'd expect, but also it will create the instance in Ashburn. And to show you what that looks like, here's one I prepared earlier. We can see this instance is currently DR enabled, but it's in standby mode. So it says here that it's in standby. But if I go to disaster recovery, I can click on this other one, and you'll notice that I'm now in Ashburn, no longer in Phoenix. So I've just popped across to the east coast of the United States. And here I can see the same instance name, but with recovery at the back. This is currently active. And so in order to fail over, how would I do that? I would just click the Start Failover. Again, a one-click process with confirmation. Do you really want to do that? And then this will start the failover so that it stops the instance here in Ashburn. And if I flip over here, I can see that the instance is still in standby state, but this will now, in the next 10 minutes, will flip to become the active instance. So it really is that easy for DR. The other alternative is to set up a customer managed DR. In this case, we set up a load balancer or API gateway in front of our instances. We give them a custom endpoint, and we set up the DNS so that we can switch between either instance based on the DNS. The trouble with the customer managed is that you are responsible for making sure that the same integrations are deployed in both environments, that the connections are configured in both environments, and the files do not get copied. In the Oracle managed DR, we take care of copying all the projects across so that you have the same configuration in both environments. And we also take care of copying all the files across, something that you can't do in the customer managed DR. So that's the difference. Oracle managed, we do everything, but there's some limitations on what's supported in there. Customer managed has few more options. For example, it supports Visual Builder, but it requires much more work on your part to work with. So Jürgen, I think that covers that one.
Yeah, so there's a question from George. He would like to know what is a good approach for source control in large development teams, and can you recommend third-party CI/CD tools?
Okay, so there are great question. We have been adding the ability to export into a Git instance so that from within OIC, you'll be able to push your artifacts straight into Git, which will make it possible to automate the move to production. We do have built-in support in Visual Builder Cloud Service to support pipelines that have explicit OIC actions such as export and import and configure connections. They also now support projects. So Visual Builder Cloud Service has all the built-in support, and that keeps you entirely within the OCI environment. There are third-party products such as, what's Dan's company called, Jürgen?
Hexagon.
Flexagon, thank you. Flexagon have a product called Flex Deploy, and a number of our customers give us very good reports on that for controlling configuration management and configuration drift. And a competitor to Flexagon used to be called Rubicon Red, and their what was their product called, Jürgen? My mind's gone blank.
It was product called Mist.
Mist, that's it. Thank you, Ravi. And Mist again was focused on code promotion and managing configuration drift. So two different products, both of them Mist, originally from Rubicon Red, and I believe the company was bought by
Deloitte.
Thank you. And also Flex Deploy by Flexagon. Both of those don't just support OIC, they support a number of other products as well, so that you can automate the entire configuration management. So those would be two companies I would recommend if you're looking outside of Visual Builder Cloud Service.
Wonderful. So in Oracle Integration 3, we have the concept of projects to build composites. Does it include now all functionality like orchestration, connections, and libraries?
Oh, yes. And here we go. Here's an example. It also supports robots. So I can create robots and all their associated artifacts in the same project. Healthcare is also in here, so I can configure my HL7 message, my fire profiles. B2B, so I can customize my X12 or Edifact documents and configure my trading partners. And the key thing is that the project isn't just the design. I can deploy, create deployments. Darn, whenever I do this, when I'm sharing Zoom, it kills my mouse for some reason. I really need to figure out what setting I need to change to get that working. My apologies. Okay, yeah, that's completely killed the mouse. But yes, so projects support pretty much everything now. In fact, that has been a focus for us the last few releases. There are a couple of items that we plan on releasing into projects going forward that will only be in projects. So, for example, robots can only be accessed via projects. You can't access them any other way. Equally, you can only access, so the B2B, all our enhancements in B2B will now go into the project. So projects will support, in fact, do support everything as of today.
Wonderful, cool. And the design question for Anand, he sees that in very complex integrations, there are more than 500 invokes and activities in a single flow. What is the best practice to make that more maintainable?
Great question. Our strong recommendation is to break them into smaller number of integrations and use local invoke. It makes it easier to see what's going on. It makes it easier to see when there's an error where it is, instead of trying to figure out, okay, it's great that OIC shows you exactly where the error is in the flow. If you've got 500 activities, and that we do have customers that have that, it's incredibly difficult for you to instantly say, oh, that's in the part where I was updating the NetSuite order. It can be quite hard to see that. Whereas if you've got an integration, child integration that says update NetSuite order, it's a heck of a lot easier. So we strongly recommend local invokes, smaller integrations.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Ravi, having you on the phone and you were so grateful answering most of the questions, are there some questions that you want to point out?
You're muted, Ravi.
I think DR came up pretty much, quite a lot. So I think most questions were related to commercials, Antony, which I believe we are going to be releasing pretty soon.
We can share those. For example, for DR, if your primary instance is consuming between 1 and 3 message packs, it will cost you 1 extra message pack for a DR environment. So if you're running a 3 message pack environment, you will pay 4 message packs to have DR. And each environment will be sized for 3 message packs. If you have 4 to 7 or 4 to 8 message packs, then it will cost you 2 extra. So if you have a 5 message pack environment, it will cost you 2 more, so you'll pay 7 message packs, but both the primary and the recovery instance will be sized at 5 message packs, so 25,000 messages an hour. If you're 8 or above, we will charge you 3 extra message packs. And so for some of our customers who have 40, 50 message packs, they will still only pay 3 extra for the Oracle Managed DR.
Excellent.
I also saw one last question, if I can squeak it in, Jürgen, is I saw a question about how about Java extensibility or other languages? If you want to extend your integrations with some Java code or Python code or JavaScript beyond what we support in the JavaScript libraries, I strongly recommend that you use OCI functions, and you can call them using the function activity in the integration canvas. And so all you need to do is have a policy that says my OIC instance can call these functions, and you will automatically be able to discover them from within the canvas and call them within the canvas without having to configure REST connections.
Antony, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you once a year on the call. We will keep the tradition, so be prepared for next year. If you want to meet Antony in person, make sure you register for Oracle Cloud World and you submit your paper. Antony's team is available across the world. Neil Kominski is our product manager in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Paulo Mota in South America. Ravi Chaplani in the US. Ravi Pinto in India. Steve Tintle in Asia. And myself, feel free to contact me for any kind of partner and marketing questions. The integration resources help you with all the links. It's also published in the chat. And we would like to say thank you for attending today. And once you leave, please complete the online survey of today's presentation. Next webcast will be on May 27th, and we plan to present another Live Labs, your opportunity to try the latest features of Oracle Integration 3 hands-on. Thanks for attending.